we'll do a review of Lekutei Sichas in Chelek Tes Zayin, volume 16, the third Sicha for the Parshas Vaeira. This is a Rashi Sicha, and we find in the Psukim, in Parshas Shmois, we find the Shlichus that Hashem sent mainly Moshe to the Bnei Yisrael, and Moshe's argument to Hashem that he was hard of speech, and the Eibishter was Mitzaref, added to him Aaron. And also in this Parshas Vaeira, mainly we talk about Hashem's mission to Moshe to go ahead and speak to Pari. Here too, Moshe Rabbeinu was complaining to Hashem that he was Aral Sfasayim, he can't speak, and the Eibishter also added Aaron. The Rebbe is going to explain the difference in the Rashi between the previous support from Aaron and the support over here, and the various different difficulties in Rashi's language. The Rebbe is going to explain that there was actually a step up in Moshe Rabbeinu's argument. First, he only said Kvad Peh, Kvad Loshen. He's hard of speaking, but over here he said Aral Sfasayim, which means that he is totally incapable. The Rebbe will explain that Hashem gives Moshe the koyach. When Hashem says Ato Tedaber, it's not just that you're able to speak, but Hashem is basically telling him that he will have him speak. And the Rebbe brings out also the Yeneshel Torah, how the power of the Nasi, even though Moshe Rabbeinu spoke in Loshen Kodesh, exactly what Hashem told him to say to Pari, and Pari barely understood, didn't understand Loshen Kodesh at all, as we learned earlier in Rashi about that Yosef and did not reveal the secret that he knew one more language than Pari. So still, you see that the power of the Nasi and the power of the Shalichus, the Rebbe will explain that even though Pari heard directly from Moshe Rabbeinu, and the Yidden seemed like heard only from Aaron, and how could it be that Pari could hear from Moshe and not the Yidden? The Rebbe explains that Aaron is only Derech Ma'avir, it's really Moshe Rabbeinu. No long, beautiful explanations over there, but let's go step by step. So, Vaeira Gimel, Aleph, the Amshach zu der Taina from Moshe Rabbeinu zum Eibishter. So this, following the argument of Moshe Rabbeinu to Hashem, so this is in the Parsha, he says, Hashem sends him to go speak to Pari, so he says, Heinani aral sfosayim, I am stuffed lips. Ve'eich yishma elai Pari, how could Pari listen to me? State in Pasuk. So what does the Pasuk say? What was Hashem's response to Moshe's argument? Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. So Hashem says to Moshe, Re'ei nisaticha lekim leparei. See, I've given you to a master, a ruler to Parei, as Rashi will explain, but I will bring it down later also. Your brother Aaron will be your interpreter. So Rashi says, as Ato tedaber es kol asher, the pasuk says, Ato tedaber es kol asher latzaveko. You shall speak everything that I command you. Now, doesn't say very clearly who does he speak to. It just says, you speak all that I command you. And Rashi will explain that you will speak to Pari. And your brother Aaron will speak to Pari. So Rashi explains what it means here. It's not that just Aaron will speak to Pari. You will say to Aaron is kol asher atzaveko, and Aaron will speak to Pari. But actually, Ata tedaber es kol asher atzaveko means also to Pari, that Moshe Rabbeinu will also speak to Pari. And when it says, V'Aaron achicho yi neviecho, V'Aaron achicho yedaber el Pari, that is talking about explaining and making it clear. As Rashi says, quote Rashi, is Rashi mighty the Haschola. So Rashi brings down the opening of this sentence of Atos Edaber. Und is mefarish pam achas kol shlichus u'shlichus kifi sheshamatim mipi. You say one time every mission, whatever I tell, every time I send, you speak as you heard it from me, from my mouth. Your brother Aaron will spice it up. He will interpret it and he will spice it up, make it tasty in the airs of Pare. The Rebbe will explain all these Lashonis over here in the Hamshach of the Sikha. But basically, Rashi is telling us here that Moshe Rabbeinu also spoke to Pare. It's only that Moshe Rabbeinu spoke it once, and Aaron was the one that interpreted it, that was tasted it, spiced it up in front of Pare. Those haste. So it means Rashi learns as Ato Tidaber Goimer. You speak, and your brother Aaron will speak to Pare Goimer. Main need as Moshe Zol Reiden Blois Aaron does not mean that Moshe should just speak to Aaron. Unor Aaron Zol Reiden with Pare, and it's only Aaron going to speak to Pare, as it would seem in the pashas of the pasuk. That is not, no, that doesn't. That style of you speak to Aaron, Aaron speaks to Yidden, that was actually with regards to the Bnei Yisrael. Over there, similar to what we learned already earlier in the portion of Shmois. As no then was Moshe had getainen to Meibrish after Moshe's argument to Hashem. He said that I'm heavy of mouth, heavy of tongue, can't speak well. And he asked the Ebershter that Shlachno b'yatishlach, that Hashem should send with somebody else. Hat ihm der Ebershter gesagt, wie die Barto Elov, you speak to him, to Aaron. And he will speak for you to the people. So over there it says very clearly that you speak a love, not alehem. A love means to Aaron. And then he said, he spoke to the people. So that's not the meaning over here, but us it's different. No, but Rashi says, as Moshe also should speak to Pare. So what's the difference between Moshe speaking to Pare and Aaron speaking to Pare? Is Moshe just said it once, and Pare is the one that spiced it up. Und der Chelek zwischen Moshe's Dibur and Aaron's Dibur, and the difference between Moshe's speech and Aaron's speech is not in them, is only in the fact that Moshe gedacht reden bloß pam achas. Moshe only spoke once. Und Aaron hat es gedacht, mamlet sein und matim sein, be'ozne Pare. Aaron needed to spice it up and make it tasty in the ears of Pare, to the extent that he can convince him, influence him, as Vishilach as Bnei Yisrael, that he should send the Yidden from his land. That's going to be the job of Aaron to convince him. The Rebbe explained also the Far is Rashi Meisiv Dam Vort. He says Aaron will speak be'ozne Pare, v'yatimenu be'ozne Pare, in the ears. Doesn't say anywhere in the pasuk be'ozne, because be'ozne is, we already learned before when Yehuda was talking to Yosef, he says, should go into your ears, meaning Rashi explains that you should pay attention to convince him. The Far is Rashi mentioned the word v'yatimenu be'ozne Pare. Hagam as in Pasuk states Tamil Pare. It says you should speak that Aaron and will speak to the Aaron who Yidaber Pare. It doesn't say Be'ozne Pare. It says David to speak to Pare. Because those mean Rashi touched the only Parish Vayigash, because this meaning of Be'ozne is Rashi says Daber Ladover Be'ozne Avdecha, when Yosef was talking to, when Yehuda was talking to Yosef. So what does it mean Be'ozne? So Rashi explained Daber Be'ozne Adoni Yikonsu Dvorei Be'oznecha. Let my words enter your ears, meaning pay attention to them. So that was the job of Aaron. Okay, so now the question is, so why does Rashi choose to learn like that? Why can't we learn that Shat in the Pasik that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to say also over here in Vaeira that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to say to Aaron only, and then Aaron himself only is going to speak to Pare, not that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to speak to. Why does Rashi have to say it like that? So there is various proofs from the Psukim itself. The Rebbe brings the Hechrech zu lernen as Ato Tedaber for Moshe meant to Pare or nicht zu Aaron. How do we know that Ato Tedaber means you should speak? Ato Tedaber means that Moshe should speak. Ato Tedaber for Moshe means to Pare and not to Aaron. Anders wie the Seder in Parsha Shmos, different than it was the order in the section of Shmos. There's many people, many commentators who explain the simple meaning, and they also interpret here as well that it means that Moshe Rabbeinu only spoke to Aaron and didn't speak to that it's not meaning that he should speak to Pari, that he only spoke to Pari here too. That some people learn like that in Vaeira as well. So why does Rashi reject that? And Rashi learns no, that Moshe Rabbeinu himself spoke to Pari. Is number one, it's already says that Aaron will be your interpreter. So if nothing is being added over here, so why is Hashem saying to him again? He's both darfis der pasuk do Nachama. Why does the pasuk need to repeat it again over here? That Aaron will speak. It means the pasuk is coming to add something. Previously, the pasuk said just you talk to the Bnei Yisrael, and I will tell you. So the Eibishter was saying that I will tell. The Eibishter will speak to Moshe. Moshe will tell Aaron. Aaron will tell the Bnei Yisrael. Over here, it's saying again, it must be something added. What is the addition? The addition here that in addition to Moshe saying to Aaron, Moshe is going to speak directly to him. That's one of the first days. Number two, Eshteit befeirish in Pasuk Friya. In the previous pasuk, it says very clearly, "Hey Muhammad Abram," they are the one that spoke. El Pare. So it seems like in the plural that Moshe Rabbeinu also spoke. As Moshe had gerat zu Pare. Also Moshe spoke to Pare. The Rebbe learned Rashi. That's why Rashi learns at the pasuk Atos Sedaber Gomer Kum Zogun that this pasuk over here Atos Sedaber is coming to tell us as Moshe is already to Pare. That also Moshe should speak to Pare. Aber there's a difference. Ezolaston nor pamachas should do it once. But Aaron and your brother will spice it up, make it tasty, will convince Pare of the mission to send the Yidden out. Base. But the Rebbe says, Emerson, we find in the previous parsha also that Moshe Rabbeinu, the Eibishter didn't exclusive. Mainly, it talks about Moshe Rabbeinu speaking to the Yidden, but it was also Moshe Rabbeinu speaking to Paro as well. The Eibishter already told them that they will go to Paro as well, and so over there, it's understood over there that in the same way that when they're going to go to Paro, so in that situation, when they speak to Paro, they already had to work this system that Moshe Rabbeinu will speak once to Paro, and so we know already this. So why does the pasuk have to tell us? And if the pasuk needs to tell us that the way it worked with Paro, that Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to Paro also, so this pasuk over here that is coming, this chiddush that Moshe Rabbeinu should say Pamachas should have already been said earlier. And if we don't need to say it earlier because it's self-understood, so why does Rashi have to say it here? Let's look inside. But Aleph, früher in Parsha Shmos wird erzählt, in the Parsha Shmuel it's related as no them was Moshe Aaron hom zu Nev Giklimim. This is Knei Yisrael v'chulu. That after Moshe and Aaron gathered the elders of Israel. Bo Moshe v'Aaron vayimru el Paroi. So Moshe and Aaron, they plurally said to Paroi, Gomer. And again, vayimru, and they said, Elekeo Ivrim, the God of the Hebrews, Gomer, let them go. They want to go worship, serve Hashem. Und von dem, was euch dort steht, der Loshen Rabbi, because the fact that it says vayimru, bo vayimru Paroi vayimru, it is a plural. Is muchach as euch demult haben beide geretzt zu Paroi. It's evident that they both spoke to Paroi then as well. And you see that there's a change of language. The pasuk changes. The pasuk is meshana from Friya. The pasuk changes from the way it's written before. But again, it's called Zikne B'nai Yisrael. When we talk about telling the elders of Yidden, the elders, state by Daber Aaron Goymer Shadibra Hashem El Moshe, that Aaron speaks to them that which Hashem spoke to Moshe. So speaking to the elders, Moshe Rabbeinu Aaron gave him over what Moshe told him. So it's very clear that over there, Moshe only said to Aaron, and Aaron said it to the elders of Israel. But by Paroi, stayed by Yoimru. They both spoke to Paroi. But Mepashah is Mistaber. So simply logical. As Moshe is given a kvat pel kvaloshin, since Moshe was heavy of mouth and heavy of tongue, was my high time that Eibishter asking them. For that reason, Hashem agreed. As Aaron will be your mouthpiece, he will speak for you. Oternit geret, barichus ubeprotius will come upon him that he didn't speak at length and details and many times. But rather he spoke the main, and that's what's absolutely necessary. If Aaron and he relied on Aaron as Ervet Matim that he will spice up his words. Those haste the ongezog b'parsha like Hashem told me in our parsha. So we already see in that parsha there that Moshe Rabbeinu himself was talking to Paroi. And in what way was he talking to Paroi? So it's logical that he spoke the same way Hashem tells him here. Moshe Rabbeinu, because he had difficulty speaking, said it once or only what's necessary. And Aaron was the one that spiced it up. So why does the pasuk not say to them? Since that's the case, the question is, if it's important to make sure, and that this is that we know that what is the order? You speak once, and Aaron tasted as Moshe read pamachas. Moshe Rabbeinu speaks once, and Aaron spices it up and makes it tasty. So the pasuk should have said it there, where they spoke the first time to Paroi in the Parshas Shmos. So I should have said there the way it works, the order. And if this is something which is self-understood, as when Beidom Geret, when they both spoke, Moshe Geret B'Kitzur, Moshe spoke briefly, short. It be a heavy mouth. When Aaron not mating when and Aaron spiced up his words, and this is something obvious, and the pasuk doesn't have to say that. But was that was the pasuk Mafared designed also? How come the pasuk needs to detail that over here? As all given talking B'Kitzur, it would have been sufficient to say briefly. As Moshe is on Mitzvah to sich Aaron, that Moshe should add to him, Aaron should go along with him. Alderech with their posik on Rashi zogen früher, similar as the posik and Rashi say earlier by Dabar Hashem al Moshe vel Aaron, that Hashem speaks to Moshe and Aaron. The Fishomer Moshe v'ani also sayim, because Moshe said, "I am." Lived Kodesh Baruch is Aaron Chulu. The Eibishter added him Aaron. We'll go through it. He says that Hashem speaks to Moshe and Aaron, meaning that Moshe also Aaron was a party to this discussion. So when he's going to Paroi over here, and the pasuk is saying when Moshe Rabbeinu continues going to Paroi, Rashi should have said that He was mitzarev Aaron to base. Aggressor at me. So that's one issue, but we have even a greater surprise difficulty over here. What is Moshe Bechlal complaining against Hashem? The Eibush already told him before. He said he's a kvad per kvad loshin, and the Eibush told him, "I'm giving you Aaron along with you." So why is he? What's his argument again? Base aggressor to me, even a greater surprise. What is Bechlal given the time of Moshe Rabbeinu do? What was Moshe's argument here? Hey, Nanira, Arals for Saim, I'm stuffed with. And Tosha Frege Taine, Kvat Pel, Kvat Loshna, he already argued that I'm heavy mouth and heavy tongue. And the Reif at the Rebster him get. And the Rebster responded to him, Who yell that Aaron is going to be your mouth. He's going to speak for you. Hein Parbos is it's wieder amol gekommen. So how come he came once again? It appears the Zelbertine is coming with the same argument. Hey, Nani Arals for Saim, I'm stuffed lips. Why is he saying it again? Well, Idoch. And on the other hand, is not in the Sveiter Taina, and if there is something, a novelty, something new in this new argument, because the Rebbe is not maspik the Eitzah Zari Yilchalopeh, and that's why the previous advice that Aaron is going to be your mouth isn't sufficient. Is wie wird sie verändert der Mitvas Aaron Chichi Neviachot? So how does the Eibishter answer Moshe Rabbeinu? Aaron will be your Neviacho. How's that? What if he has another car? What's his Lecheda Zelber and in Parashas Shmos? It seems like the same answer as the portion of Shmos. Basically, both the argument of Moshe Rabbeinu and also Hashem's response seems to be identical to what we learned before in the portion of Shmos. So why is Moshe Rabbeinu coming with the same Tanya again? And if there is something new about it, Hashem's answer doesn't seem to be anything different than before. So what's going on here? The Rebbe will explain actually that there's a whole new Taina over here, and there is a whole new answer over here, as we'll see in the Rebbe's explanation, the next Siv Dalet. Gimel. Before Shem answering of the zweite Shaila, before Shem answer the second question, that what happened here, as früher redt sich nur wegen dem Dibur alone. Before we were just talking about the speech to the people. With the pasuk is not madgish, Dibur hu l'cha he'll speak to you to the people. So, and therefore, not such a so important as it is important. Here, the novelty is that you also have to speak also to Pare. So that's why he argued again, to go speak to Pare, stuff clipped. The Eibush hat geantwortet, as euch bei der Shlichus zu Pare waren also by this mission, Aaron will be your interpreter. Basically, they want to be mechalik that in Parshas Vaeira we're only talking about Moshe Rabbeinu talking to the Ziknei Yisrael, and over there Hashem told him, but here is a new shlichus. It's a shlichus of Moshe Rabbeinu to Pare, and therefore over here this is something new. But the Rebbe is going to argue, no, we already know before as well that Moshe Rabbeinu has a shlichus to Pare as well, and Hashem's telling him, sending him Aaron as his mitzaref to Aaron is for that as well, for the shlichus to Pare. It's not something which is totally neschadish in our parsha. This is already in the previous parsha as well. Aber es ist schwer, zu sagen, weil Aleph, bald in Hemshech von der erste Rede, because as soon as a follow-up to the first words with the Eibush hat angesagt, as Moshe will werden der Shliach Hashem, that Hashem instructed Moshe that he should become the agent of Hashem. And over there we're talking about both missions. It says, Leich was Savta Zikna Yisrael. First gather the elders of Eden Goymer. And Euch ver Shlachach al Pare Goymer. I'm going to send you the Pare. So we already have both missions over there. So when Hashem says to him, is there full movement as the tshuva from Eibishter, when Hashem says to respond to Moshe Rabbeinu, it wasn't just about speaking to the Ziknei Yisrael. It's understood both to the Shlichus and who Yilchol Lepeh, but Tzitzich Abed the Shlichus, and that he's going to be your mouth, means both Shlichus. Base. And this is the main thing is with a couple of verses later on, noch on der Zählung, ad der Eibishter hat Maskim given hu Yilchol Lepeh. In Parsha Shmois, after the Eibishter says that Aaron is going to be his mouth, the Zel der Posik at the Eibishter gesagt to Moshe beferish. Posik relates that Hashem said to Moshe very clearly, when you're going to return to Mitzrayim, see all the miracles. You should do it in front of Pare. You shall say to Pare. So over there, we see very clearly Hashem giving an instruction to Moshe Rabbeinu, and he says, "Va'amarto el Pare." As Moshe soll live them Tainen zum Eibishter that he said that he can't speak over there because, and the reason is why did Moshe Rabbeinu not complain then when the Eibishter told him to go? Because he already had the answer from before. In the past, Muzma Zogen Azarat angenommen. We have to say that he accepted. Even though that here too he will have to speak. Unlike the speech to the Bnei Yisrael, Aaron himself spoke to them. Von deswegen kann mitnehmen Aaron Lepeh, that he would be able to take Aaron for Lepeh. So he knew already this. So why is the pasuk over here repeating it to us? And now, so we have something is going on over here that Rashi, that the pasuk has to say over here, B'chlal, this whole thing, that Aaron is going to be Lepeh, something different than before. But now the Rebbe is going to ask several questions in the Loshen language of Rashi itself before the Rebbe gives the answer in Oishei. Okay, Oishdalit. In addition, there is several problems, the Yukim, that we can look in the language of Rashi. The Rebbe mentions a few of them, four of them. Aleph says, moving as Moshe Gered b'tzimtzum b'kitz. We understand Moshe Rabbeinu spoke restricted, short, limited. When Aaron had in the Meirich Mating, when Aaron belonged, and he spiced it up. But what forces us to say, as Moshe Gered davke pam achas, that it was only once? Maybe he spoke more than once. Why does Rashi emphasize that he spoke once? Base. He spoke every mission and mission. Why say every mission and mission? They should have said, it would have been fitting the Loshen called that he should speak every instruction. This would fit with the language of the pasuk. Everything that I command you. So Moshe Rabbeinu spoke everything that Hashem told him. Be more fitting. Gimel, Rashi says, as you heard from my mouth. What does he have to tell? What is Moshe Rabbeinu going to say? What he didn't hear from Hashem. That seems to be an extra language. See, then with Moshe Zogen Pare, would then Moshe say to Pare, Nit wie hat es gehört von Eibishter, not as he heard it from Hashem? Why does Hashem have to? Rashi has to emphasize as if you heard it from, as like you heard it from my mouth. And Daled, and then the fourth question: Vos is der kefal haloshen yam litzenu v'yat imenu? What is the duplicate lashon? You should yamlitz, spice it up, taste it up. What is the duplicate? So the Rebbe explains that actually there was an additional complaint here. It's not because there was a change between speaking to Hashem, to Pare, or speaking just to the Bnei Yisrael. No, there was a change that Moshe Rabbeinu realized that not only is he have heart to speak, but he's totally stuffed. He's aralpe. Der Biur in dem wird sein verstandig. The explanation in all this would be understood. Behagdim lahasbir was Moshe hat in sein Teine do, that Moshe in his argument here, Beshane gewann von seinem früher dicke Teine, he changed from his previous argument. In Parshas Shmois hat gesagt. The portion of Shmois he said, Kvad peh uchvad loshen unoichi. He said a heavy mouth and a heavy tongue. And though he says ani aras v'sayim, a closed, stuffed mouth. Befrat, as loit pirush Rashi, according to Rashi, is this hashinu nit nor in loshen, not just using a different language, the same idea that is difficult in speech, but it means something totally different. Not in oichin toichin ha'inyan, but it's also in the idea what we're talking about over here. Kvat pe ukva loshen anoichi is Rashi mefarish. What does it mean? Heavy mouth and heavy tongue. Rashi explains, I speak heavily with difficulty. Thus haste, that means he could speak. That does come to know bis kvedus, but it's heavy for him, it's difficult for him. But mash'ekin als fasayim, when you said als fasayim, stuffed lips, Rashi otums fasayim, my lips are stuffed. Seine Lippen seien verstopft, his lips are stuffed. Sie ist Störung zum Reden, he can't speak, it's a disturbance to speak. It's not only that it's heavy for him to speak, it's difficult to speak, but he can't speak. Und das ist der Chiddush in sein zweiter Teil. This is the novelty over here in his new argument. Before he thought, as it is blois kvat pelch balosh, he thought only heavy of mouth, heavy of tongue. I can't read my kopon mikvedis. He thought he can speak at least with difficulty. Und der Riber hat zum Aspen given mitzunehmen Arnen. That's why it was sufficient to take a long Aren. Why? Because was it Meiri Chumatim Zain, he is going to prolong and he's going to spice up. Das was Moshe wird sagen bekitzer zu Pari. That which Moshe will say in brief to Pari. Aber jetzt ist gekommen zu der Hakore. But now he came to the recognition as Ani Aras Vosayim, that I am stuffed lips. Sein Reden is nicht, nor nicht bekalus. Not only can he not speak easily, but in ganzen nicht möglich. He can't even say it all. Ki iluver will give an autumn as if he was stuffed. So what's the point? So what does it help me that there's Aaron? It doesn't really fit to have him go to Pari. Not only why is he going to Pari? To sit there and say nothing. On the contrary, if he doesn't say anything, it may look as if he's agreeing to Pari. Adrab. To come to Pari in a way, there'll be silence over there. He won't say anything. But need blois need bringing kantel is not only would it not bring any benefit, but this will cause, it'll ruin the mission. Pari may accept and assume that his silence as haskama, there is an agreement. As a it should be heavier the work or similar by not saying. So what did the Eibishter answer him? The Eibishter didn't just say, I'm setting apart. The Eibishter says, I'm going to give you the mouth to speak. The Eibishter answered. So the Eibishter's answer responded, Ato tedaber goymen. You will speak. This is not just an instruction. Du sollst reden, you should speak. Nor zusammen der mit haftocha, but together with the instruction, it's a promise. Du wirst reden. You will speak. Although you are stuffed lips, that Eibishter im geben die Yichudis zu reden. The Eibishter will give you the ability to speak. You will speak. The Eibishter will allow you to speak. Und der Riber is Rashi Medayik. That's what Rashi says, Kol shlichus u'shlichus u'cholu. It's going to be the mission that you're going to do, to madgir sein, to emphasize. Hados was Moshe gekent reden, that Moshe was able to speak is taki given nit b'koyach atzmi. That wasn't from his own power, nor der far was is gegangen b'shlichus shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because he went in Hashem's mission, so he can speak. Und das hat ihm gegeben, that gave him the power and the ability to speak was because he was going in a shlichus of Hashem. Das kommt behemshech zu dem, was Rashi is meparish mit psukim frier. This follows and is a continuation to what Rashi explains with several verses before. Ani havaye kedai ani l'shalchacho shalechacho l'kayim divri shlichos. Ani havaye, I am worthy to send you and to fulfill the words of my shlichus. So basically, as is genug dos was ani is der meshaleach. It's selfish. I am the one that is sending you. I am sufficiently. It's worthy to kenem mekayim zan divrei shlichus to fulfill the words of my mission. Al derech zeh benegeya zum etzem ibergem zog divrei shlichus. That's the general mission of going to fulfill it. The same thing is true with the actual words. That Moshe Rabbeinu will be able to speak the words of the shlichus. The Eibishter will make it that he will be able to say the words of the shlichus. This also explains to us the length in Rashi's language. You'll say once every shlichus and shlichus as you heard it from me. The kavona for Moshe's gains, reden zu Pare, the intent of Moshe Rabbeinu going to speak to Pare is not given to einen Pare mit Hasbaros the time. It wasn't to convince Pare with explanation and reasoning why he should send them out. His job was nor to ibergem. His job was to give over the shlichus, the mission from Eberstein. The mission Hashem sends him to speak. That's what he had to do. Moshe is given the shlich habaya. Moshe was the agent of Hashem. Was hat gerät zu Pare b'mokim u'b'koyach ha'mashalech. He speak in the Pare in the place and with the power of the sender, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking in the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He stood in the place of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, speaking to Pare. Moshe gedacht übergeben dem genoim loshun von dem Meshalech, and therefore Moshe needed to give over the exact language of the one who sent it, on hachpola v'hasbara, without duplication, without explanation. And gedacht sagen bloß pam achas. He needed to say just once. Punkt with the Rebbe gesagt pam achas. Just as Hashem said once, that's the way He says it. Und and exactly like you heard it from my mouth. With the exact lashon precisely. As you heard it from Hashem, that's the way you have to give it over. There's no convincing here. This is just a mission to present, say the words of Hashem to him. You heard it, and you give it over to him. Here we have the question that Dibur from Eberstein to Moshe, the speech Hashem speaks to Moshe, is the Lashon HaKodesh. That wasn't Lashon Kodesh. And therefore, the Burish shall Moshe to Pare, Lashon HaKodesh. So how did Moshe speak to Pare? He has to say exactly like Hashem told them. He told to Pare, Kefisha Shamata Mipi, like you heard it from my mouth. Is that move on? It's not understood. Rashi Shefri and Mefarish given in Parshas Vayechi. Rashi earlier explained the portion of Vayechi. As Pare had need makir given Lashon HaKodesh. Lashon HaKodesh, he couldn't tell. He doesn't know Lashon HaKodesh. Ein V'azoi hat he can't verstehen was Moshe gesagt Lashon HaKodesh. So how could he understand that which Moshe said in Lashon Kodesh? So that's why Rashi gives two languages over here by Aaron. The deeper is Rashi Mamshich. Yam litzenu v'yatimenu v'chulu. Yam litzenu means to translate. Yatimenu to explain. Because first Aaron needed to translate that which Moshe Rabbeinu told him. Was Yam litzenu hat in sich euch dem Teich von übersetzen, von ein Sprache bei zweiter. Litzenu also means to interpret from one language to another one. Wie Rashi Shefri Mefarish given in Parshas Miketz, in the portion of Miketz, Rashi explained, Oifon Posik Yahamelitz Bein Noisom. What is the Melitz? The translator. When they would speak to Yosef, the brothers, Hoyamelitz Bein Noisom, The translator was amongst them, Hayadei Loshen Ivri, the Loshen Mitzri, who knows the Hebrew language and the Mitzri language, and he would translate the words. So Yamlitzenu over here was Arin translated. It says Arin vet Homun at Svein Niken Tafkin. He will have a double purpose, double job. Aleph Yamlitzenu, first of all, Ibersetzen von der Sprach von Divrei Moshe. He'll have to translate it from the language of Moshe's words. And Beis Viatimenu Chulu, he'll have to spice it up. Masbiru Matim Zain dem Teuchen für seine Rede, to explain and to spice up the contents of what he's saying. Translate first and then also explain it. But in a way they should be accepted in Pari's ears, meaning he should pay attention to them. Zayin. So this doesn't seem still to be so smooth. Since Pari did in an event not understand what Moshe spoke to him, was is given to Elis for Moshe's Dibur. So what was the benefit of Moshe's speech? But to the extent of them is given as spezial in the Sinus Canal. To the extent that there was a special in the Sinus giving the ability, because Moshe could autumn arouse for side. David says, no, you will speak. He'll give him the ability. Canal. Why was that so? Is the biur, the explanation does come behemshech to Pirush Rashi and Friedrich Posik. This comes as a follow-up to the Rashi in the previous pasuk. Nisaticha lekim lepare. I've given you as a master, as a ruler to Pare. Shoifet v'roidel l'radosim makas v'yisurim. You'll be the judge and the one that is going to beat him up to punish him with plagues and makas and says. Moshe's inyan is Zainarei to Pare. What was Moshe's idea? Why did he speak to Pare? Isn't it given him wasn't to explain to him with words of reason, etc. This is given Aaron's tafkid. That was Aaron's mission. That Aaron will be your interpreter. That's what he's supposed to do. Nor im zu Shofet sein. He was the judge. Moshe Rabbeinu was the judge. And in a way to judge him and punish him. But this is l'redoisim makas v'yisurim, to punish him with the plagues and pains. Similar in our case. Moshe Rabbeinu gedav zogen zu Pare shalach es ami. Moshe Rabbeinu needed to say to Pare, send my people mit a strengkeit, with a strictness, being angry on him. So that was the purpose, is to beat him, to dominate him and show anger to him. As from Oifun Hadibur, that the way Moshe Rabbeinu speaks, from Oisdruk from Moshe's Ponim B'Shas Ma'aseh v'Chulu, and the expression on Moshe's face, the way he's saying it, the anger. So Pare verstehen ados is cautious. Pare should understand that this is difficulties, that is giving him hard words, even though he's not saying, he doesn't understand the language. But he doesn't have to understand the language. He can just see by the expression of the face and the way he's saying the words, the dogma for Makkah Yisurim, that will be similar to pains and beatings. This was Moshe Rabbeinu's mission. So not a mission to explain why and how, but just to show, give over the words of Hashem, the anger and the harshness, the expression of against Pare. So now the Rebbe goes to the initial Torah, talking about the strength of Moshe Rabbeinu being able to overcome a Rasha. Sometimes Rashas are times that are difficult, and you need a Moshe Rabbeinu. And you see sometimes that in order to subdue them, you need that level of anger and leadership and dominance of Moshe Rabbeinu. the wine of Torah in the Rashi. In the Inyan for the Einis Aticha Lekim Lepare. And this idea, I've given you and making you a ruler over Pare, Shoifet V'Roidel L'Radeis Makas V'Yisurim, a judge and somebody who to punish him with the Makas and the Yisurim. Chassidus Mevair, Chassidus explains. B'Shas Klippe Zainen Ba'otzem Tokfam. When they are in the powerful strength, when they nurture from Kedusha, at that point when they are flourishing and when they're nurturing from Kedusha, so even a tzaddik doesn't have the tzaddik doesn't have the strength to throw them down and break them. Similar to we see a saying of our sages, a blessed memory, they say, if you see an evil person who the time is smiling to him, in other words, he's successful in what he's doing, stay away. Don't tease him. Don't start up with him because he at that opportunity. So there's sometimes when the Ra is in full bloom, it's takeif. Das is nor bicholte is baruch shukol yachol. Who can break him? This is the blessed ability of Hashem. He can do everything. As afila Rosha was his kol geya, that even a Rosha who is all arrogant, zol zayin v'hashpileu hachnieu v'hadach rishoyim techosim, that he should, the pasuk in Iyov, lower him, subdue him, beat the Rosha down under them. Hadach rishoyim tachtom, push the Roshaim underneath the tzaddikim. Thus meant, and this means when he says re'ei, Hashem says re'ei nisaticha loshen chidush. It's like a novelty, a surprise. See, I've given you nisaticha l'kim lepare. I've given you as a ruler of Pare. Gam as Pare is not given betokvei, even though that Pare was still in his force. That even a slave cannot escape from Egypt. But the Eibshter gave Moshe, Hashem gave to Moshe Mem Sholo Zroya Kikel Mamish Al Pare. He gave him the hand and the power. As Hashem, this is a lotion of the Eve Shom. Over there, Al Pare over Pare. These to raid him zayin b'makas v'yisurim, to beat him with the pains, with the beatings and the pains. The Eibshter gave Aaron and Moshe that ability to break him even under strength, even in the place where nobody can run away. Moshe Rabbeinu was given that strength. That power was given specifically to Moshe, because he is the leader of the generation. He is the one that stands between Hashem and the Yidden. As Hashem, to relate to you the words of Hashem. Moshe is in between the Eibishter and the Yidden. Tell them what Hashem, the word of Hashem. He's an intermediate through which Hashem's word actually is being extended to the people. The Riber, that's why through him is revealed Hashem's strength and ability, blessed ability, to punish them with beatings and yisurim. When their meat is moving, now we understand that there is a dissenting opinion about starting up with a Rasha. Some Rashbi says, he's in the view, you could start up with the Rishoyim. Even when the time smiles them, when they're in a good. Well, Rashbi is a Nitzutz Moshe Rabbeinu. Rashbi is a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu. Kidu, as it's known, was hod dem koyach zu machnia sein, the Rishoyim. He has the ability to subdue the evils, even also when they are with their force. That is the inner reason why we needed Moshe to speak, because Moshe was the only one that could be there at that level. The Buddhist it wasn't sufficient, the speaking of Aaron, and Beis Chochas, the Dibur is given in Ashprach, even though the speech was in a language, was Parad nicht verstanden. Parad nicht verstanden, that he didn't understand. But yet, it needed Moshe Rabbeinu, because Moshe needs to do the beating. But those are most often the Shvira from Parad. Because here we needed to accomplish breaking Parad. When there is no betokve when he's in his force. When the Riber can't just talk to him, you need to break it. Aleph, as he is as not Moshe, only Moshe is the one that has the power to break Parad. Base as a nit an Indian from Birur. It's not to sort him out, no Shvira Leradoise, we're breaking him. Once he's the far nit negeya, and that's why it's not important. As Parad don't verstehen them Dibur. It's not important they should understand. We're not trying to explain to sort them out. We're breaking. That's move on. Based on the above, we also understand. Those is Rashi Zok. Rashi says, he had to give over the words of Hashem, exactly like you heard it from my mouth. Odem koyach, this power, zu kennen, zu brechen klippes, wenn sie sind noch betokvam, to be able to break the klippes when they're still in the force. Hat Moshe Rabbeinu gehat mitzad dem, was is given der Shliach Hashem. He had it because he was the agent of Hashem. The Ruchbemen es is nizgal given kochi yisborach. Hashem's strength has been revealed. Zroya kakel is quoted in the passage before. The strength like Hashem, that is Moshe Rabbeinu. The Riber is the Dibur given in an Eifel von Atos the Daber Kifisha Shemaitim Epi. That you speak as you heard from my mouth. Al derech, this is similar to the idea. Shechina medaberes b'tachgerin shel Moshe. Shechina spoke from Moshe Rabbeinu's throat. It was Hashem speaking through him. This is the idea of Atos the Daber Kifisha Shemaitim Epi. Just give over. Damit kann man echt mal Vaeira sein. It can also explain with this was der Seder von Atos the Daber, that this level of Atos the Daber, breaking this parry, this new additional way, Moshe Rabbeinu saying it in one way and breaking, even though there's an also sign, but the Eibishter gives him that koyach, came after Moshe Rabbeinu's total bittul, not only kvad pel, kvad loshen, but also Ras Fosayim, and meaning that he was a total bittul. So there's Seder von Ata de Daber Pamachas kol shlichus v'shlichus kipisha shematim mipi. In this way, you say it once as you heard it from me. Hat sich eingeheben erst noch dem. This began only after we Moshe had getainet aniyar als Fosayim I'm stuffed with. Says Mavur in Chassidus. He explained in Chassidus that those was Moshe is given kvad loshen. That why was Moshe hard of mouth and tongue? Hat sich es genommen. Mitzad sein bittul tzalakus, that came because of his subjugation to godliness. As tzulib sein goydel habittul, because of his great subjugation. But the nidgi can't mashpia sein. He wasn't able to give forth. Aderech be'aidi de toret lemivla lepolit. Once a person or once something is occupied to absorb, cannot give out. Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't speak because he was totally absorbing. He was totally negated to Alakus, so he couldn't give out. The food is moving. So with this you understand. So that's Kvad Loshen. So Aral Sfasayim, based on Goydel Habit of Moshe Rabbeinu. Stuff that shows on the great subjugation of Moshe Rabbeinu. That's even a greater bittul than Kvad Loshen, than heavy of mouth and tongue. But he can talk, or here he can't talk at all. But Kvad Loshen, heavy of mouth and tongue means meint as there is noch geblieben dibur. That there is some hashpah left over by Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe is bekvedis, it's difficult, heavy. Nor need bittul legamre, not total bittul. Aras Fosayim over vice to bittul betachlis. Aras Fosayim points to total subjugation. Was the far kenner in ganzen nit reden, that's why he cannot speak at all. Und der Riber, and therefore is dafke od der bittul von Aras Fosayim that subjugation of Aral Sosayim, that was the Isarusa de Latata, that was the arousal from below, that Moshe Rabbeinu reached that level, Achona v'Agdama preparing to Einis Aticha Lekim Parei to become the Elikim the Reuter for Parei. Durchum Bittel in an Eufel von Bli Shum Hergish Klau. When he has that subjugation without feeling at all, totally quoted from the Mimer, can there noch sein, then there can be al derech von Shechina medaberes mit Hergerin shel Moshe, similar to the divine speaking from Moshe's throat. Diavar havaya mamish, it can be mamish dvar Hashem. Was fodert sich to the shvira from Parei, which is necessary to break Parei. So Moshe Rabbeinu had to reach the level aral svosayim, more than chvat pel chvat loshe, in order for him to be able to become the Reuder, to give over to Dvar Hashem, Pamachas Kishmaite Mipi, to be the Shliach Hashem, to break Parei in Loshin Kodesh, without having just to the force of Hashem coming through Moshe. Now we have a problem, but it turns out Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to Parei, but to the Yidden only Aaron spoke, so the Yidden lose out. Wie kommt es? How come? Was darf ke Parei hat gehört die Shlichus Havaye euch from Moshe allein? Parei heard, only Parei heard from Moshe alone. Ubnei Yisrael was gehört bloß von Aaron, but the Yidden, they only heard it from Aaron. The Dibur Hulacha, he spoke to the people. Emes Take, well, they didn't need it. As Bnei Yisrael haben nicht gedacht ankommen zu them. They didn't need to be broken. Parei needed to be broken. Needed Moshe. Mashengen the shvira from Parei klipa betokva. That was the klipa force. Had gemut sein nor durch koiches shel Moshe. That needed to be only through the power of Moshe. And al derech says this oich in pashtus inyan. It's also in the simple idea. Eden seinen. We also understand this in general. Eden seinen mamini b'nei mamini. Eden are believers, sons of believers. The Rebbe is farzei genug as Aaron gets Iber. For them is sufficient that Aaron gives over to them al shluchah shel Moshe, as an agent of Moshe. But Moshe had gehört from the Ebersten, that Moshe heard from Hashem, is by Yamin Omgomer. The people believed. By Parei Ober Voldos need mass be given. That wouldn't be sufficient. The Rebbe Moshe Lengen must reden, so Moshe Rabbeinu needed to talk. So we have the logical explanation. Moshe Rabbeinu did not need to speak to the Yidden in order to accomplish, but he needed to break Parei. Okay, those are explanations, but at the end of the day, turns out that the Yidden didn't hear from Moshe. From Desvig, it says, "Nit kor glatik." It's not entirely smooth. Favozol by Yidden fell oder inyan naila from the Buddha Moshe. Why should Yidden be lacking this great advantage from hearing the words of Moshe? The explanation is when Aaron git iber divrei Moshe to the, that's Moshe himself speaking. It's not something different. He says, "Doch by im nor bederech maiver." It's only passing through Aaron. The Yidden nemen dem dibur shel Moshe. The Yidden accept Moshe's words on kein shinu v'yiridu b'malosei, without any change or descent in the advantage of Moshe Rabbeinu's word, mitzad memutza, because of the Aaron, who's the intermediary. Al derech v'Moshe kibel Torah misinai u'mesora liYeshua v'Yeshua lizkeinu m'chulu. Just as Moshe Rabbeinu receiving the Torah from Sinai and gave it over to Yeshua, Yeshua to Zkenim, was agamas as durgegangen kama v'kama mutzoim. Although it was passed through many intermediaries. Von deswegen is as als the Torah from Sinai. It's still the Torah from Sinai. K'maimer Chazal, as the sages of blessed memory say, as the saying, Kol masha talmid vosid osid l'chadish nit l'Moshe Sinai. Everything that a studious student is destined to come up with an insight has already been given to Moshe Sinai. So when Moshe Rabbeinu speaks through Aaron, it's not like a change. It's mamash the words of Moshe Rabbeinu. It's derech maiver. Like kegen by pare, as opposed to pare, if the Burisha Moshe would gekommen, nor durch Aaron, and if the words of Moshe would come through Aaron, would das gemus sein in an Eufung von his slapshus v'shinuyim chulu. Then that would have to be dressed up and changed. Ubemele volt in dem Dibur gefällt von Koicha shel Moshe. So then in that speech, there would be lacking Moshe's power. Was fodert sich l'shviras parik now, which is necessary to break parik, as mentioned before. Der mit is euch move on der shinu haloshin in the psukim. We also understand now the change of language in the verse. By Bnei Yisrael state, by the Bnei Yisrael says, Aaron yilachol lepeh, will be your mouth. And by Parei v'Aaron achicha yiniviyecha, will be your novi. By Eden is Aaron given pipshal Moshe. He was your mouth. He was the mouth of Moshe. L'chol lepeh, that was your mouth. It just went through him. Aaron's dibur is given. The Zelber Darge Viven or coming from Peshel Moshe, it was on the same level as when it comes from Moshe's mouth. Moshe's mouth, Derech Maiver, it just goes through. Mashenke Bapare is Aaron Blois Given V'Yechava. There he was just his interpreter. But those men keep Pirish Rashi with Turgemanach, the interpreter. When at Devar Hashpoe. But when you give over a flow through a translator, it goes down, descends, and a descending and a change. It has to change based on the recipients, as explained in many places. So over there, we needed Moshe alone, because Moshe through Aaron could not give over fully, as opposed by the Yidden, he became the Peh, and that was fully Moshe Rabbeinu's strength. Yudalef. They wrote for them in Avodah, so the Yidden didn't lose out anything by not hearing from Moshe, because Aaron is a Memutz, and that was his Peh. Yudalef. They wrote for them in Avodah Protz and Kol Echad V'Echad. What is the lesson in the individual service of each one of us? Each one. It says, Do Amol, there is some time as the nefesh alikis gefindt sich in golus and nefesh amamis. The godly soul finds itself in exile in the animal soul. Bizin an oifen, to an extent, in a way, was Hashem mesachekes lo. The time is laughing, the good time. The klippe is in a matzav from gasus. The klippe is in a situation of grossness. It raises itself on the light of the holiness of the godly soul. Is the eights of them. So what is the advice to overcome this? Saticha lekim lefare. I've given you as a master to to beat him with the makas and the yisurim. As dar zayin the yargis odom yetzer tova yitzharochu. A person should get the yetzer tov angry on his yitzhara. Yarim Allah b'koil, bring from the Tanya that he should raise b'koil rash v'roigis, with a voice, noise and anger, lahashpila, to lower her, loymar lo yatorah v'chulu, to say to him, you are evil, etc. With those gufa, and that itself, berech, the gasus haklipa, breaks the thickness and the coarseness of the klipa. For nefesh abamis kimavur baruch v'tanya, as explained at length in Tanya. We can say possibly I'll call upon him as the koyach of them hot men from Moshe Rabbeinu. And where do we get the power for this? Is Moshe Rabbeinu gives the power to break that clip. Was imo der Eivishter gesagt der Eines haticha lekim lepare. Hashem told him, I've given you an elikim, dominant par shefet v'reid v'radois makas v'yisurim, as a judge and a beat to beat him up with makas v'yisurim. The ribir is all the koyach faram by yed din. Therefore, that power is by yed, by every Jew. Or kol nefesh v'nefesh v'beis Yisrael yesh bo memchinas Moshe Rabbeinu v'sholem, because every yid has some of the level of Moshe Rabbeinu, peace unto him. Malachas kam v'kamo, and how much more so? As Azoi is as by Eden als Klau. This is by Eden as a whole, as a general. When we speak about all Jewish people have that strength. by Nosi HaKlal, and by the leader of the Klal. Was Nosi HaKlal, the Nosi is everything. Kshem v'Moshe Rabbeinu in Zayt Zeit, just as Moshe Rabbeinu during his time. But Gehad dem Koyach, he had the power to redesign Parei b'Makas v'Yisurim, to punish Parei with these Makas and Yisurim. Afilu ben Hashem esachekes, even when the time seemed to favor him, looked smiling, the time was good to him. And yet, Parei was beaten by Moshe Rabbeinu. Likewise, it's in every generation. As the Nosi Hador, the leader of the generation, that is Pashtusa, the Moshe V'chol Bedora, the expansion of Moshe that is in every generation. Hodem Koyach durch zu brechen. He has the power to break through Allah Halamas V'Estadim, all the blockages, all the obstacles that obscure even at the time that they're forced, the Nosi Ador has the ability to break through. That enter, this is also the response, Divas Tainen, to those that argue. Since we find ourselves in the double and quadruple darkness, from Dora, the Mashiach, the generation of the hills of the Mashiach, with so many obstacles, so many blocks, and blocks. How could we accomplish the demands for Rabbi Seinu from our teachers, our leaders, to meifizayin them limud teres hachasidus, to disseminate, to spread the teaching of the Hasidus, the study of the Hasidus teaching, and the alichem b'darkei Hasidus, and going in the path of Hasidus b'chol makom in every place. Ubefrat in the Erter, especially in those places, v'zer matzev is azoi niderig, that they're so low, the situation, they are to the extent that they prevent and they hold back, they don't allow. We need to know, as is pastusa the Moshe b'chol dora v'dora, that the expansion of Moshe in every generation, also in the generation of the hills of Mashiach. Adrabah, the Baal the neshamas from Haitik and Dor, since the neshamas of our generation, Dora the Iksa Mashiach, the generation of the hills of the Mashiach. Gilgul, we're in a level of reincarnation. From the neshamas from Doir HaMidbar, Kiyadua, we are the incarnation of the souls of the generation of the Midbar, as known, the Kabbalah, Zicher, that the same matters that were in the generation of the Midbar, exists also now. Durch them, and through this, that we tie ourselves to the leader of the generation. My father-in-law, the Rebbe, Hotman, need was to nispol them. We need not be affected from the halomas ve'estodim, from those blocks and the obscurities. Because we have the power of Moshe Rabbeinu to break them. To beat them with the makas and the yisurim. For sure, we have to go with ways of pleasantness, ways of peace. That was the will of my father-in-law, as he asked from his father, the Rebbe Rashab, that his leadership should be in the way of kindness and compassion. So that is true. It's be b'darkei noim b'darkei sholim. But one needs to know, as b'shas is zugebunden zum Nosi Hador, that when you are connected, tied to the leader of the generation, was the hiskashus. How are you tied? Is durch limud turasei, by learning his teaching. Hitten seine takones, to keep his instituted directives, and to follow in his path for eternity. Then we need not be impacted by any obstacles, any blockades. Just as then Moshe Rabbeinu broke the shell, the clip of Pari, he took all Jews out of the exile of Egypt, the Yad Rama, with a raised up hand, so will we now, as nit kukendik of Koshi Hagolus, notwithstanding the difficulty of the exile. But der Moshe Shebedoir Arois Nemen uns Allemen, the Moshe of our generation will take us all out from Golus, from the exile, so the Geula Amitis Vashlema, to the true and complete redemption. The Yad Rama, with a raised up hand, Bekoriv Mamesh, very soon. This is Misichas Shabbos Parshas Vaeira, Tovshin Chavtes and Tovshin Tezvav.